But I bet it's also about like snakes and foxes and being hung.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick. Chapter 7 of the Fires of Heaven. A departure. And our symbol is the dragon banner.
What do you think the dragon banner means here?
Rand's marshaling all the Aiel that are available to him now, and at the end of the chapter, they start moving toward Cairhien.
Okay, so this is basically the Aiel people following the dragon out of Ruidian into the wetlands. Yeah,
because in our last Rand chapter, we've heard that the Shaido are moving. So Rand says, basically, I don't care that everyone's not here yet. We have to go. Again. Yawning in the early morning grayness, Egwene pulled herself up onto her fog-colored mare, then had to handle her reins smartly as Mist frisked about. The animal had not been ridden in weeks. Aiel not only preferred their own legs, they avoided riding almost completely, though they did use pack horses and pack mules. Even if there had been enough wood to build wagons, the terrain in the waste was not hospitable to wheels, as much more than one peddler had learned to his or her sorrow. She was not looking forward to the long journey west. The mountains hid the sun now, but the heat would grow by the hour once it climbed clear, and there would be no convenient tent to duck into at nightfall. She was not certain that Aiel garb was suitable for riding either. The shawl, worn over her head, always did a surprisingly good job of keeping the sun off, but those bulky skirts would bare her legs to the thigh if she was not careful. Blisters worried her as much as modesty. The sun on one side and a month out of the saddle should not have softened her that much. She hoped it had not, or this would be a very long journey.
Burn on top, get bruised on bottom. That's basically what she's talking about with, like, she's worried about saddle soreness and burning, right? So she's caught between the sun and a bouncy horse.
Once she had settled Mist down, Egwene found Amis looking at her and shared a smile with the Wise One. All of that running the night before was not the reason she was still sleepy. If anything, it had helped her sleep even more soundly. She had found the other women's dreams last night, and in celebration they had sipped tea in the dream, in Cold Rock's hold, early on an evening when the children were playing among the crop-planted terraces, and a pleasant breeze blew down the valley as the sun sank. And after this, we kind of see that after Egwene finally managed to find a single person's dream, she had spent the rest of the night looking at everyone else's, and that is why she's tired.
Right. She totally took on, like, Rand's dreams, which were warded, of course, with Saidar, and so she's got, like, no chance of getting through. She's like an invisible wall. I'm gonna break through, but she never does.
Warded his dreams with Saidar?
Saidin? Sorry, did I get that backwards?
Oh, yes.
The male half of the true source.
Right. She looks at the Wise One's dream, she looks at Rand's. There's not much to talk about there. They seem to all be having, well, Melaine and Bear seem to be having kind of regular people dreams. Bear is dreaming about one of her ex-husbands, and they're hanging out, whatever. And Melaine is dreaming of a child. Her child, presumably. A little baby.
Yeah? Yeah, that's right. Isn't she pregnant?
I don't know if she's pregnant, but she did just make the move to marry the guy she's into. I forget his name off the top of my head.
Bear or something like that. No, I think she does end up with twins later on, but not yet. That's one of those things that Min sees. She's like, oh, you'll be having twins. And she's like, I just realized I was pregnant this morning. How did you know that? So,
oh, yeah, I assume at this point she's just dreaming of her future.
Bale,
what she
yes,
wants.
Thank you.
It's just something that she wants, just like Bear's dream is just something that...
She looks at Kadir's dreams, where he's dark and unpleasant, because he's a dark friend.
Yeah.
I wonder if that'd be a way to find dark friends, but probably not reliable, but still.
Isandra's dreams, where she does seem to be having something happening there, although Egwene doesn't stick around.
I think that dark, what does it say? There's something laughing at her, and torturing Isandra in her dreams, and I'm fairly certain that is Lanfear is coming to Isandra in her dreams and just torturing her, because that's something Lanfear would do, because she fucking hates Isandra. She's the one who hid the jewelry and got her punished by the wise ones. It's all that, like, Rand is mine, don't you dare sleep with him type thing. Don't you dare even try.
Yeah, Egwene just says, nightmares of torture, of things being done to the woman that sent Egwene fleeing in horror, and with something dark and evil laughing as it watched her run. No wonder Isandra looked haggard.
I think that dark and evil thing that's laughing is totally Lanfear.
It could be. It's just nondescript. So I didn't know whether to say that if this, like the others, is just a kind of reflection of the people's real lives and, their fears and hopes, or if this is like an actual thing happening to her in the dream. Could be either way. And then we kind of start the first of two kind of packing and moving chapters. We watch Rand marshaling everyone, talking to the clan chiefs, but also sending a message to some Ogier through Aiel traders about how he wants Ruidian rebuilt, and that is basically at the Ogier's behest, for lack of a better word. She's trying to convince the Aiel that they should just let the Ogier do whatever they think should be done.
Right. Ogier make the prettiest buildings. Why would you ever interfere with that? Bring in the Ogier and say, go for it. Like, especially Aiel, who have no idea what cities are like, have never lived in a city, have never had a city before. Like,
that's a good point.
They don't know what they need. It's bring in the Ogier. They know how to build.
And if you're going to hire a talented artist, you don't tell them what good art is. That's not why you hire a talented artist.
You say paint this wall, and when he says what, you say whatever you want.
Do it good, dude.
I do like, there's a few things from Egwene's perspective. I like how she thinks that Rand's so full of himself because he got this new fancy belt buckle, but that's actually the belt buckle that Aviendha gave to him, made out of her spears and basically all her equipment that she cares about.
Yeah, her weapons, and the one she gave him because she hates him. Because
she hates him, yeah. And meanwhile, Egwene's like, that arrogant bastard with a fancy belt buckle.
Of course.
And it's like, yeah. No, I love the way they look at each other, and they always make, like, the wrong assumptions about why the other is doing things. Rand and Egwene, they're such mirror images of each other. And they're both, in a lot of ways, they both go off to become Aiel and use their Aiel heart to rule the rest of the Westlands. It's like they both go off to the waste. She becomes Amerlin's seat. He becomes the Dragon Reborn. They're just these incredible mirrors of each other, and they both go on to use the lessons they learned from the Aiel to essentially school everybody else around them. So the more I read these books, the more I see them as like parallel main characters.
Absolutely. And the Aiel Waste is really a training ground for everyone who goes, including the Aiel.
The threefold land. A punishment for their sins, a training ground for the future, and something else, which I always forget. I love the image of Jason and Tell, like, dressed to the nines, and then, like, a shitty gleaming cloak thrown over it.
Yeah. Gleeman are strange ones, though.
Mm-hmm.
As Egwene thinks.
And we see a lot of the maidens, I don't know, just they're talking about bracelets. And one thing to notice is all the Aiel, they wear all sorts of jewelry except for rings. Rings are a very Wetlander piece of jewelry to them.
I never really noticed.
And the only Aiel you'll see wearing rings is Savannah, who's fully embraced being a Wetlander.
Fully embraced being a Wetlander?
Savannah?
Yeah.
Well, not yet, but when she's in the wetlands and she is essentially leading the Shido, she's talking about, like, having her children become the future rulers, like the Wetlanders do. She's wearing Wetlander clothing. She's wearing rings. She's totally embraced. She wants to be queen of the Aiel, not...
And kind of take their stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Enslave the Wetlanders.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And she's like, wants servants, right? She doesn't want Ch7. She wants servants. She's really just totally bought into the idea that, like, as ruler, she should be privileged.
Yeah, I can see that. But she's, I think, very much like that from the beginning, where she believes that she deserves whatever it is for having been married to the old clan chief of the Ch7. It's all really convoluted from the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, totally. But, like, you see her in the Wetlands really, like, embrace the hedonistic culture of the rich that most of the other Aiel seem to avoid.
Maybe gone a little native in that way.
Exactly. Yeah, and even though the other Aiel certainly have valuable possessions, right? They have, like, the fifth that they take from a bunch of places and stuff like that. But she just starts wearing, like, ungodly amounts of jewelry. Like, you can't even move around without, like, clinking type jewelry. It's Mr. T levels of jewelry.
Sure, and I think from Egwene's perspective here, we see a little bit of a breakdown when she's talking about jewelry. She sees that, except for Ch7 and maidens and Aviendha, she notes, who still kind of acts like a maiden, women do wear a good amount of jewelry. And she notes that amongst the different classes, people wear jewelry for different reasons. Like when they're talking to the Aiel traders, essentially, or merchants, I should say, she sees some of these women are really decorated, like wearing small fortunes. But I see that as a symbol of status. You know, they're saying, like, I'm so successful that I can wear this amount of gold.
Right. Back to the books, I noticed that Egwene doesn't bother looking at Matt's dreams. I was curious, do you think the medallion in any way affects that?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't think so either, because it's not channeling. Dreamwalking is not channeling.
This says she had avoided his dreams, from her perspective.
She just thinks it's going to be all about having sex with this maiden.
Probably is, but whatever.
Maybe. But I bet it's also about, like, snakes and foxes and being hung, and I bet his dreams are a lot more complicated than she's assuming.
I would think so. He's a much more complicated character than people give him credit for.
Well, especially the women. Like, there's that they see him as this rogue with no real subtlety to him when he's got all these. You know, that's one of the things that I think Tuon is able to see better than many of the other women he's with. She sees him, you know, like you said, he's a lion when he's in the plains, he becomes a lion, or whatever that saying was, where she sees him, like, adapting to whatever society he's in.
And as Egwene pulls up near Matt because she's looking for Aviendha, and she pointedly says she only reined in beside him to look for Aviendha. She's, like, really not interested in talking to Matt, whatever that is. And we see Matt talking about, he's saying he told her to be quiet, and she did. And she started telling him why this was the wrong thing to do. Sounded to me like she was saying it for the 100th time, and he said, "I've decided, Moraine, stand over there and be quiet until I have time for you." Like he expected her to do as she was told, and she did. And this is the first time Egwene is finding out about Moraine's kind of agreement with Rand that she'll stop trying to kind of lord over him and work more
manipulate
with him. Yeah.
More trying to advise him rather than manipulate him. Get him to do, help him rather than get him to do what she wants.
Yeah, and I feel like this is the most interesting part of this chapter as we walk through.
Definitely. What we're seeing here is tons and tons of hints in these various conversations with Moraine and about Moraine that she has the premonition that she is going to have to sacrifice herself to stop Lanfear. And, like, you have to keep that in mind when you read everything that's going on here. So everything that she's doing with Rand, she's doing because she sees her time with him coming to an end very, very quickly.
She knows that if she crosses over that dragon wall, or I suspect that she thinks that if she crosses over that dragon wall, has to leave, basically. I think that a big part of why she's trying to get everyone, she's talked to the wise ones, she's talked to Rand about it over and over, to not bring the Aiel over the dragon wall, is because I think this is a if this then that situation. If the Aiel cross the dragon wall, then she has to do this thing to keep Lanfear away from Rand, and she's
exactly
not stoked about it. She just knows that she has to.
It doesn't sound like a good time, frankly, being kidnapped by the snakes and the foxes and forced to be tortured for a very long time while they slowly suck the one power out of you, while they feast on your pain and memories and fear. Yeah, that sounds like a blast. And she walked into that.
We can also assume that she got a good preview of what exactly that would look and feel like, because
she lived it.
Right. In the one of her, I guess, premonitions, you might call it, or possible future viewings from when she went to Ruidian and did the first test that wise ones do.
Yeah, we'll see her actually reference that ter'angreal that she went through here in this chapter.
I set a little bit to read here when Rand's talking to the gathered Aiel, because I think there's only 3 reads in this whole chapter. But, like I said, they're both kind of short and kind of setting us up for what will happen soon.
Yeah, I just brought up a couple of references to Avienda's bracelet, and then, of course, which is given to her by Rand, and that's the whole, like, possibly courting gift that we think she thinks that... Anyway, that's the whole misunderstanding we've talked about many times. And then, of course, she's got the snowflake necklace that Egwene here says I got from Kadir. And it's a Kandori pattern called snowflakes. And so this lets us, there's a lot of sort of back and forth. We were talking earlier about how Rand and Egwene never understand each other. Well, the person who's in between them the most is Avienda, who's a friend of Egwene and, ends up being a lover of Rand. And so a lot of times, and Avienda doesn't talk to one about the other. And so they're like, who gave you that bracelet? Who gave you that necklace? And it's like, you did. You're Egwene. Like... Right. You shouldn't be jealous, like my friend and the Rand.
The Rand.
The Dragon Reborn, sorry.
Egwene gave the snowflake necklace to Avienda as a response to Avienda's gift to her, which was a ivory bracelet that's said to be flame carved. So we assume it's carved in the shape of flames. And those gifts solidify their near sister bond. I'm making air quotes, near sister bond. So it's like a first step toward becoming first sisters. It's like a pledge. Whereas Rand's gift to Avienda is like saying, hey, you want to go out sometime? And Avienda just holds it and thinks constantly.
Honestly, it's like having your crush give you an engagement ring, but not know what an engagement ring means. And be like, I guess I have to wear it. And having all of your, like, teammates be like, oh, you're engaged. And be like, he doesn't know what it means. Right. But she still has to wear it. I don't know. It's sort of a weird... It's just the culture. She won't take it off. And we've speculated that has to do with her trip through the ter'angreal. That if she turns aside from her courtship of Rand, that, there'll be disaster. It's like...
That she can never get away.
Something of that nature. Yeah, she can never get away. That no matter what she does, she's going to end up falling in love with Rand. Which is in her dream, we see this big Rand coming after her. And Egwene's like, you don't have to be scared. And she's like, I'm not scared. I'm falling in love.
Right. She's trying to escape her inevitable fate. Egwene just doesn't have the context to understand what her nightmare is actually about.
Right.
Egwene's like, I know he's an ass, but he's not that bad. He's not, like, violent. Why are you afraid?
There's a snow hut in my future.
This is as the Aiel are sort of getting their things together, and everybody's packing up camp. The crowd around Rand was beginning to break up. He swung easily into his saddle, imitated promptly by Natail. One of the traders, a broad-faced, flame-haired woman wearing a small fortune in worked gold, cut gems, and carved ivory, lingered, though. Karakarn, do you mean to leave the threefold land forever? You have spoken as if you will never return. The others stopped at that and turned back. Silence spread on an expanding ripple of murmurs telling what had been asked. For a moment, Rand was silent as well, looking around at the faces turned to him. At last, he said, I hope to return, but who can say what will happen? The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. He hesitated, with every eye on him. But I will leave you something to remember me by, he added, sticking a hand in his coat pocket. Abruptly, a fountain near the roof burst to life, and roof, capital roof, so I assume he means the maiden's roof.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that. That's a good call. Yeah, good catch.
Water gushing from the mouths of incongruous porpoises standing on their tails. Beyond that, a statue of a young man with a horn raised to the sky suddenly was putting up a spreading fan, and then two stone women farther on were casting sprays of water from their hands. In stunned stillness, the Aiel watched as all the fountains of Ruidian flowed once more. I should have done that long since. Rand's mutter was no doubt meant for himself, but in the hush Egwene could hear him quite clearly. The splash of hundreds of fountains was the only other sound. Natail shrugged as if he had expected no less. It was at Rand that Egwene stared, not the fountains. A man who could channel. Rand, he still ran despite everything. But each time she saw him do it was like learning that he could all over again. Growing up, she had been taught that only the Dark One was more to be feared than a man who could channel. Maybe Avienda's right to be afraid of him. But when she looked down at Avienda, open wonder shone on her face. So much water delighted the Aiel woman, as the finest silk dress might have Egwene, or a garden full of flowers. It's time to march, Rand announced, reining the dapple westward. Anyone who isn't ready will have to catch up. Natail followed close behind on the mule. Why did Rand let such a bootlicker stay near him?
Did you notice the use of the Terangrial to bring the fountain's water up?
He
stuck his hand in his pocket. He uses the Fat Man Terangrial. And then, of course, the miracle of water that just freaking... I mean, the Aiel, if they didn't already see him as a savior...
He just changed their civilization forever.
Yeah.
Just that. If he had done nothing else at all.
Yeah. Just bring up water to the fountains.
Yeah. That would have changed their society forever. But so much more is happening, and I feel like that's kind of settling into... And why, much like when Rand presents his two dragon tattoos, the Aiel just assembled, like thousands of Aiel, just stare at him in shocked silence.
And not to mention, if Avienda hadn't fallen in love with him before, it's a hell of a thing to pull off, bringing up all that water.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The way she reacts to that, like, she sees him as... amazing for doing that. That's like a totally, I don't know, hitting a bullseye 3 times in a row, being a soccer, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like bringing water to a city has to seem like a miracle.
Or to anywhere, and so much of it. That's why I see, like, the Aiel don't cheer. They sit there in stunned silence and stare in awe. This is an almost existential moment for them. Just realizing that not only is the Karakarn here, not only do we know everything's going to end, but when we come back, not only is everything will be over, nothing will ever be the same. Not even this place, Ruidian. It will be completely different.
Oh, totally. Already is.
The past is dead. And no one knows what the future is, but I think they all believe they're probably all going to die at some point in the near future. I think that's what this means to them, and why, again, when Rand does these things, the Aiel don't cheer. There's
No. Okay.
It's not a joy. It's a sort of sadness almost. Even when these things are, you could view them as objectively good, right? Like having more water in this land, of course. But to them, it's the death of their way of life.
I saw it more as just stunned that, like, if you fought your whole life over a cup of water, like, this abundance that he just shrugs off seems like an almost godlike power, and you don't even cheer. You're just stunned that someone can do that. It's just like, oh my god.
Nothing will ever
That's
be
incredible.
the same.
Yeah. And then I guess the next thing I have is really the perspective switch. And so this is one of my favorite little segments here.
Yeah. At first we see Moraine kind of looking after all of the Terangriel and Angriel she's bringing back to, or trying to bring back to the tower. This is a total aside, but do the Terangriel ever make it back to the tower?
You know, that's a good
I can't remember
question.
what happens to them after Cairhien. They make it to Cairhien.
Someone asked that question, and I remember being like, you know, I looked it up, and as far as I could tell, they're just never mentioned again. Like, they never seem to arrive.
They're still in Cairhien, Pookie? I would believe that. Because Rand gets there, the whole thing with Lanfear happens after the battle, so Cairhien's burning even more than it was before he got there. Civil War, the Shido show up, then Rand comes and clears it out, so Cairhien's just in ruins. Lanfear and Moraine have their confrontation, and then that's over, and then
I think the place
I can't
is still
imagine Rand's
chaos
like,
until...
send that stuff to the tower, because Lyta.
Right.
Not that he'd give them anything anyway.
Until, what, Elaine takes over, Rand is still technically the ruler of Cairhien. He's got a steward in place, but...
Yeah.
He visits Cairhien on a regular basis.
We see Moraine shows us kind of a weird scene through her eyes where a lot of the stuff in Ruidian is packed up, but it seems like not even half of it. And some things are so huge that they simply can't be packed up into a wagon, like the, I want to call it the Wise One's triple ring Terangriel. The first test for the girls. Yeah.
Yeah, their accepted test. Right. Like 3 dull gray metal rings, each more than 2 paces across, standing on edge and joined at the middle.
And then it just says, a braided leather rope had been strung around that one to warn all from entering without the Wise One's permission. So it's a sort of bizarre scene, I think, for everyone, kind of compounding what I said before, where this used to be a sacred place where no one went unless you were going there, basically, and or to the Crystal Columns. And now there's just like people wandering around this sacred space, and the Wise Ones don't know what to do other than put a rope around it.
Right. It feels very museum-y to me, of like, oh, this used to be a sacred temple, and now there's a bunch of like tourists with cameras checking it out, being like, click, click, you know, and like this just feels very much the same way where, oh, we got to rope this, we got to put a velvet rope around this thing because it's actually like has historic value and we don't want people touching it, but, you know, people are going to be walking through this space.
That's why I feel that compounds it, that I feeling even more that this is the end. Like now we're looking at what the Aiel used to be already. And they're not
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and we know by the end of the series, they do not return to the Waste. Like, they become the police force. Like, they will never go back to the life they used to live here in the Waste. And the ones who stay in the Waste are probably going to have, you know, Ruidian as a central hub and all the water they need. And that's going to be a whole different sort of trading. It'll be like, you know, Vegas, right? It's in the middle of the desert, but it's got plenty of water. And it's sort of this major trading hub. Sure. I wanted to ask what you thought about the fact that more women survived the columns than men.
Let me look really quick so I can be specific. More women survived it than men. Bear said it was because women were tougher. Amis, that those too weak to survive were winnowed out before reaching that point. And I think that Amis is correct, that these young men who go to become a clan chief have basically no preparation. Like, they have preparation in how to govern. They have to kind of move their way up slowly to be considered for that. But they don't have any preparation for their minds, as much as I think the wise ones prepare their apprentices way better, or at least vet them. You know what I mean?
Right. They're people who have the ability to deal with hard truths that maybe the clan chiefs, as young men who are simply good at battle or good at leadership, may not be able to deal with.
Right. Just because that guy negotiated some great contracts doesn't mean that he'll be able to confront the awful history and future of the Aiel and what all of that means.
Right, but at least the wise ones who have gone through this Changriel have already gone through the Three Ring One and seen a lot of alternate history and dealt with a lot of hard truths that way. Things that must be... this is such a great quote from Moraine. This is the... All possible futures were too many for a mind to retain, of course. Like, that whole paragraph just is... It's just ripe with clues, and I want you to read that one if we're on it. Starts with the first test, the first winnowing. A spoonful of hope and a cup of despair. Okay.
The first test, the first winnowing, before any training even, was to step through one of those three rings. Which one did not matter, or perhaps the choice was a matter of fate. That step seemingly took her through her life again and again, her future spread out before her, all the possible features based on every decision she might make for the rest of her life. Death was possible in those too. Some women could not face the future any more than others could face the past. All possible futures were too many for a mind to retain, of course. They jumbled together and faded away for the most part. But a woman gained a sense of things that would happen in her life, that must happen, that might happen. Usually, even that was hidden until the moment was on her. Not always, though. Moraine had been through those rings. Is the paragraph.
And that's what I really like. Yeah, that paragraph is like...
It's an unsettled
okay.
hint when she's like, a lot of that stuff you forget, but not everything.
And some things must happen. And we know from her letter, one of the things she knows must happen is basically the whole thing with Lanfear at the end of this book. This paragraph is so early and so much foreshadowing for the end of the book. I love it. I love it. I love the hints that Jordan is dropping towards... You know, the way she's basically getting her affairs in order, saying goodbye to people, giving up on doing her own manipulations, talking about things that must happen. There's all this foreshadowing for her death that makes a lot of sense in the reread, but that, you know, I don't think anyone would read this and be like, oh, Moraine's going to die at the end of the book.
Yeah, no.
So I just love everything about this chapter and Moraine's POV.
Yeah, I'm going to keep going, and I wanted to read the conversation that happens right after that paragraph, because I feel like it really displays what is happening in Moraine's mind.
Mm-hmm.
Although she doesn't say it. A spoonful of hope and a cup of despair, she thought. I do not like seeing you like this, Lan said. From Mandarb's back and his own height, he looked down on her, disquiet creasing the corners of his eyes. For him, that was near tears of frustration from another man. Aiel streamed by on both sides of their horses, Engai Shane with pack animals. Moraine was startled to realize that Kadir's water wagons had already gone by. She had not realized she had been staring at the plaza for so long. Like what? She asked, turning her mare to join the throng. Rand and his escort were already out of the city. Worried, he said bluntly. No readable expression on that stone-carved face now. Afraid? I've never seen you afraid. Not when we had Trollocs and Myrddraal swarming over us. Not even when you learned the Forsaken were loose and Samael was sitting almost on top of us. Is the end coming? She gave a start, and immediately wished she had not. He was looking straight ahead over his stallion's ears, but the man never missed anything. Sometimes she thought he could see a leaf fall behind his back. Do you mean Tarmangaidon? A redbird and Selsanin knew as well as I, the light send, not so long as any of the seals remain unbroken.
The end? She gives a start because he says, is the end coming? And she's like, well, kind of. the end of our relationship, the end of my life, yes. Tarmangaiden, I don't know.
May not be the end, but...
No, but the end is the end of us. End. Is an end. And so she's like not sure what he's referring to because she's thinking about her end. That's what she's staring into the plaza thinking about.
Yeah.
And he just totally throws her off. But he doesn't have that vital piece of information that she has because he didn't go through the doorway and she hasn't told him about it.
She gave a start and immediately wished she had not. He was looking straight ahead over his stallion's ears, but the man never missed anything. Sometimes she thought he could see a leaf fall behind his back. Do you mean Tarmangaiden? A redbird in Selsonin knows as well as I. The lights send not so long as any of the seals remain unbroken. The pair she had were on one of Kadir's wagons too, each packed by itself in a cask stuffed with wool. A different wagon than the redstone doorframe. She had made sure of that.
Because the redstone doorframe wagon is gonna get blown up by Landfear. And she's seen that in the vision.
What else could I mean? He asked slowly, still not looking at her, and making her wish she had bitten her tongue. You have become impatient. I can remember when you could wait weeks for one tiny scrap of information, one word without twitching a finger. But now? He did look at her then, a blue-eyed gaze that would have intimidated most women, and most men as well. The oath you gave the boy, Moraine. Whatever under the light possessed you? I figured I'd leave it there because I figured we'd be answering his question, but I think we already did.
She's only got a little bit of time left. And she's trying everything she can, including thinking about sleeping with him. Not that she would have ever considered it, but that would have been a disaster.
The rings had told her, yeah, that it would be a disaster. She said she hadn't considered it until she saw that it was a possible future.
And that's what she says, I will do everything short of sharing his bed.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the readout for me, the only thing I really had there is that Lan really is fallen in love with Nynaeve. Moraine has seen that, and she's arranged so that when she dies, which she knows is coming, he has a chance of living and being bonded back to her when she's ready for him.
There's a chance, but Moraine's more concerned that he won't kill himself in a suicidal rage. So she sends him to... What's the woman's name again she sends him to?
It begins with an M.
Is it Myrelle with Myrelle? Yeah. Muriel?
Yeah. But she's a green who's saved a few other warders who have lost Aes Sedai.
Right.
And also likes to sleep with the warders. One of the ways she keeps them alive is by fucking their brains out. And that's implied in a lot of places, but never said outright. But Nynaeve's like, just don't tell me about it. Just I don't want to know. But yeah, that's part of the implication. That part of the time that Lan spends with Muriel is sexy time.
I think there's a little bit of an implication that she has that kind of relationship with her warders. Yeah.
And like he has like hickeys on his neck, right? Like when I think Egwene creates a gateway for him, when she becomes the Amaryllis Seat, there's a scene where she realizes that Muriel has been keeping Lan alive and hiding him, and she confronts her and says, "Okay, I'm sending you to Nynaeve," and opens a gateway. And that's right before he shows up and rescues her from the boat and all that kind of crap. But when she sends him off in the gateway, she notices he has a hickey.
Oh, wow. That's really specific. I would never remember something like that.
He has a bruise on his neck in the shape of a mouth. It's a hickey. And this whole, it's just, and she's like, don't let Nynaeve see that. And she's like, maybe you don't have to tell Nynaeve everything that went on here. And he's like, I know it, I'll tell her. That's all he says. So yeah, no, it's not even subtle. I mean, it's okay, it's a little subtle, but there's abundant evidence that Muriel keeps Lan alive, basically in bed.
It's Myrelle, by the way. I looked it up.
Muriel,
because Myrelle, I just didn't think could possibly be pronounced Muriel.
Yeah. Wait, how are you saying it?
Myrelle. For nearly 20 years he had followed her, and saved her life more times than she cared to count, often at great risk to his own. Always he had counted his life a small thing, valuable only for her need of it. Some said he wooed death the way a bridegroom wooed his bride. She had never held his heart, and never felt jealousy toward the women who seemed to throw themselves at his feet. He had long claimed that he had no heart, but he had found one this past year, found it when a woman tied it on a string to hang around her neck. He denied her, of course. Not his love for Nynaeve Almira, once a wisdom in the Two Rivers and now an accepted of the White Tower, but that he could ever have her. He had two things, he said, a sword that would not break and a war that could not end. He would never gift a bride with those. That, at least, Moraine had taken care of, though he would not know how until it was done. If he did, he would very probably try to change matters, stubborn fool that the man could be. This arid land seems to have withered your own humility, Alan Mandragordan. I shall have to find some water to make it grow again. My humility is honed to razor sharpness, he told her dryly. You never let it grow too dull. Wetting a white scarf from his leather water bottle, he handed her the sodden cloth. She tied it around her temples without comment. The sun was beginning to rise above the mountains behind them, a searing ball of molten gold. The thick column snaked up the barren side of the Cain Dar, at its tail still in Ruidian, when its head had crested the slope, then down onto rough hilly flats dotted with rocky spires and flat-topped buttes, some streaked with red or ochre through the gray or brown. The air was so clear that Moraine could see for miles, even after they were down off Cain Dar. Great natural arches reared, and in every direction jagged mountains clawed at the sky. Dry gullies and hollows split a land sparsely dotted with low, thorny bushes and leafless, spiny plants. The rare tree, gnarled and stunted, usually bore spines or thorns as well. The sun made it an oven, a hard land that shaped a hard people. But land was not the only one changing or being changed. She wished she could see what Rand would make of the Aiel in the end. There was a long journey ahead for everyone. That's another head nod. She wished she could see what Rand would make of the Aiel in the end.
Right. But she's not going to be there, and she knows it.
Yeah, implying that she won't be there.
That's just, it's so good. It's so good from her point of view. There's so many hint drops, and just reading these last couple of pages, I was like, oh my god, I love Robert Jordan and his writing. This is really, when he writes Moraine, he is at his peak.
My humility is honed to razor sharpness.
And stop recording on that. I almost just want to build myself a chamber that I can, with movable panels and shit that I can put everything inside of that's totally soundproof.
A chamber of secrets? Is that too menacing? It's probably too menacing.
Except it's like where I'm recording myself and broadcasting it to everybody. So it's like the opposite of a chamber of secrets. It's like a chamber of where secrets. Chamber of telling everybody my private life. I got stung by a bee today for the first time in maybe only the second time in my life. I went to sniff a flower and I wrapped my hand around it and fucking bee got me right in the pinky.
Nice.
Definitely pulled the stinger out and everything. Hurt like a son of a bitch for a solid 10 minutes, but now it's totally, I guess I'm not allergic because
yeah, that venom works. It hurts way more than it ought to.
Right, yeah, I was like, ow, is that like a splinter? I was like, oh, feels like someone's crushing my pinky.
Yep. I've gotten swarmed several times while collecting firewood.
Oh.
I'm not. I'm like the least allergic though. It hurts like it hurts as bad as anything for like I don't know. I got stung all over the shoulder a long time ago. I think it hurt for like a couple hours, just throbbing. But it goes away.
Yeah.
Within like a
no,
day.
I got a little bit of a bullseye around the stinger, but like I said, that went away pretty fast. Because that was on my way home, so that was maybe 5:30, so maybe an hour ago.
Flowers are awesome this time of year in Portland. The roses are crazy right now.
There are bees everywhere.
There's an older woman that has a house that's like maybe a block away from mine, and her rose bushes are like 12 feet tall, maybe. They tower over the sidewalk and like hang back down. It's awesome. Covered in every color you can think of.
Yeah, it's beautiful this time of year in Portland. Everything's really blooming. Things are starting to get ripe. I've been picking the blueberries and blackberries off of bushes and just eating them as I walk around. The figs aren't quite ready yet, but the berries are starting to pop.
Yeah, I've been going to a farmer's market near my place, and there's blueberries are on like super sale right now. I think that they don't know what the hell to do with the amount of blueberries. They're like half the normal price. So I've been eating like a pint a day. It's pretty great. It's like $3.
Yeah, it's good to know. I might have to take a trip. Yeah. I'm not being good about grocery shopping lately. I haven't been eating shit. I need to make an effort to go to the store and actually buy some groceries.
Just going out all the time.
Yeah, well, and like, when I work, like today I just went into work and grabbed a burger and fries because it's $4.
Oh yeah, I get that. On days I work, I just cook one meal at home pretty much, and that's all the rest that I eat.
Because especially since I'm in the kitchen, I can eat whenever and whatever I want, basically all day.
I have yet to use one of those online ordering services, but more and more people I know use them. I'm very lucky that I live like 5 blocks from a grocery store and 2 blocks from a farmer's market, so I just go. If I have like a free hour or two, I just go pick up a couple of whatever we need. I don't have to shop with kids, although I can't imagine.
Yeah, I only ever have to feed myself, which makes grocery shopping feel in a lot of ways kind of counterproductive. Because like if I had to feed other people and myself, I would be grocery shopping in a very different way. But since I only have to feed myself, and for the most part I can eat at the restaurant where I work, and because like today, I didn't work today, but I went in and got a $4 sandwich, essentially, it's really hard to justify spending money on groceries. It's just hard.
Well, yeah, if you're not cooking big meals and you're the only one eating them, then it's discouraging. I did a lot of big servings of really simple things I would keep a long time when I lived alone. But I was also had way less money flow then, so I was much more careful about all my spending.
That's hard. It's hard. I've definitely sacrificed in some ways the quality of the food I eat simply because I can't be bothered. It's just so much work to shop and cook. And like I can find other ways than to earn the money to shop and cook. So, I have a pile of ramen in my cabinet. It's an important, valuable thing to have. Ramen, rice, beans. Might not be good, but you can always survive on ramen, rice, and beans.
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter is important.
Staple. You can pretty much live on those things. You're talking about Soylent?
Oh, Nin, I'm right there. Yeah, the Soylent. I would love it if Soylent didn't give you like terrible diarrhea. But other than that, like I would totally want to drink my meals.
Have you tried it?
No, actually.
Oh. I tried one once because I saw one in the store and had read about it, so I wanted to see what it was like. And I was, what I had was a couple of years ago, I think, but it was Tasted like a protein shake, so not bad, but
Right.
it's a protein shake, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of grainy. It's shruggable.
Well, Christine, I did have, I want to say it was 12 weeks where I couldn't chew my food, so I kind of got to the point where I did miss it, I will admit. But it's not that hard to survive off of a liquid diet. I lost a lot of weight on the liquid diet. I will admit that. It was hard to stay up to weight which makes a lot of sense why, like, for old people, losing your teeth is like the number one indicator of bad health.
Yeah.
Not because like you've lost. Yeah. It's like once you lose your teeth, you can't eat. And like you pretty much, especially in any sort of wild animal, once they lose their teeth, they pretty much die right away. But even I think malnutrition in the elderly is a big problem for those of folks who don't have good teeth.
That makes sense.
Or even just people who don't have good dental care, who are younger and have had a cavity that's caused pain and stuff like that. Like, you can really, if you have bad teeth, that can cause malnutrition and that can lead to all sorts of problems. It's like the number one indicator. Like, if you have bad teeth, you're most likely going to have like a heart attack, because just the way the infection and the way that goes directly down into your gut. And it's just this weird, I don't know. Bad teeth is so bad for you. And one of the reasons why old people live as long as they do now is because they get better nutrition because they have better teeth. That's like the big breakthrough. Like before we had like cancer treatment and like all sorts of other, ways to help old people. Like, the reason people didn't live that long and died young generally was because they lost their teeth, couldn't eat enough, and essentially, that, like, you ever seen like skeletal old people that you're like, how do you're not even like, you're clearly not processing enough calories to keep you alive, because they lose taste, they lose the ability to chew, all those things. Oftentimes they lose the ability to stay hydrated. That's also one way that old people will die quite easily, is that they don't stay hydrated very well. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?